Welcome to Bookworthy. Today we are talking with middle grade author and illustrator Rob Baddorf. Rob worked many years as a creative director at a publishing company, and then he started his own, where he has published over 80 titles, including a Christian space adventure, Kimberly the Cat series, a Christian fantasy chapter book, and recently the Animal Shelter Detective Agency series. Today we're going to be talking about his Recruited by the FBI series, which I've heard there's a little bit more coming our way. So welcome to Bookworthy, Rob.
Thank you. Thank you, Valerie, and thank you for having me here.
It is a pleasure to have you. We kind of discovered you through my middle grade reader, who is what I call a book dragon, because he devours everything. He's read every book he's allowed to read in our house at least twice. And so we discovered you, and it's been really fun to see your content, see the fun stories that you've produced. But we have to start with our random question of the week.
Yes.
What is your most used emoji?
Probably my most used emoji is just the standard smiley face, which is a little bit boring. But probably in second place is the little scooter. For some reason, I really like the little scooter. I think it's one of those hold-ons from my own childhood that I just really loved, the little handhold scooter that you hold the handle and you kick along, and I just think that's fun. So
it does sound fun. It sounds like it could communicate a lot.
Yes.
I think right now when we're recording this is kind of April, May, and that's kind of the end of the school year for my kids. So we're in this sprint marathon of all the events. And so my emoji I'm using the most is kind of the melting smiley face. It's
yeah.
We are just going to survive this month, maybe.
Yeah.
Well, Rob, tell us a little bit about the Recruited FBI series.
Sure. It's kind of a upper middle grade YA series. So far it's 3 books in the series. And it's essentially about a boy who gets recruited into the FBI, believe it or not, through the fact that his dad had been an FBI agent. And so the FBI isn't always forthcoming in the age requirement that they will accept or won't accept. So when they have an opportunity to use a teenager, they hire Robin Banks to come in, and then he brings some of his best friends along. So it's a team of 2 boys and 2 girls that go around and do the work for the FBI.
That's kind of fun. It's one of those books you don't expect there to be a Christian element to the FBI. So how did you choose to kind of weave that into your storytelling?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that's part of my passion in writing, is to why not bring God into the places that we haven't simply seen him before, like an action story. Why can't somebody stop and pray? Why can't there be conversations about God and with God? Why can't God be involved in the adventures of life? And so that was one of my strong desires with this, is to try to incorporate all the parts of our Christian life into a fun, pretty much over-the-top adventure.
Definitely gets a little wild at times, for sure. But it's really fun, the friendship element that you wove in, that it's not just focused on Robin Banks, but just how he interacts with his friends and how they become part of the process.
Yes.
And just kind of that coming of age element that is so prevalent in middle grade books, but with a really fun spin. Now, were you ever recruited by the FBI?
Well, if I was, I couldn't tell you.
Oh, well, true.
So I'm going to decline that answer. But that was actually that's part of what inspired this, is when I grew up, I went to public school. And on the slower days that were a little boring, I enjoyed daydreaming that the FBI would need some of these kids' helps. And what they would do is they would go and they would talk to the principal at the school, and the principal would walk into the classroom and ask for a child to the teacher. And I would be one of the ones that would be picked, and I would be excused, and everybody would think maybe I was in trouble, but really I was going to the principal's office to talk to the FBI to help them out on some case. So that was where a lot of this stemmed from.
So instead of Harry Potter letters, you were wanting to be recruited by the FBI.
Yes. Yeah.
Too fun. I love how imaginative ideas that we have as kids also often come into our stories as we are writers, as adults, because what is it? That creative spark is so big when we're kids, but we just can't quite wrap our minds around it. So it's fun to see adults reaching back to stories that
Definitely. Yes.
encourage them. Well, what do you hope to communicate with kids with this Recruited with the FBI series?
Well, that's another good question. I think it's because I'm really interested in action adventure. I think it's the idea that there is adventure in life, and that's how God created it. So often, God comes to us and asks us to follow him, and it doesn't seem either safe or necessarily smart. I love stories like Abraham and, being called out of Ur, when he really had probably a pretty good thing going there, and yet God invited him on an adventure. And so it's this issue of, are we prepared for kind of the adventures in our life? And so that's kind of what the story is about, is where is God in the adventures of life, but are we, how should we seek them out? And how can they just arrive to us, and how do we respond? So that's some of what intrigued me.
Very true. And you've done something a little different with your middle grade books. So middle grade kind of ranges from 8 to 12, and so the page ranges for middle grade can vary widely too. But you have kept these books really short and kind of more serialized fiction. What made you choose to make them in that format?
That's a good question too. I actually studied film, and so that was what my major was in college, is screenwriting. So you ended up having to write almost all your scripts as close as possible to 90 pages. And so I learned the art of storytelling to a specific page count. But what I also really liked about it was I liked, now with the invention of like online streaming stories and movies, kind of this limited dramatic series really intrigues me, because you get more with characters. You can go deeper with characters and plots than you can with just a standalone story. So I love the idea of a serialized, episodic story. But I also like trying to take bite-sized pieces so that people don't get bored with too much backstory or too much description. So I'm trying to keep the pace kind of moving.
You definitely have done that and kept it very fast paced. And it really speaks to how kids are reading these days, because with video games and just media and how it's just coming at them so fast, to have a book that, there are so many classical books that they're still reading in high school that would never be published today because the audience just isn't reading that type of book. And so you really have kind of honed in on your audience and how they're reading and how they are engaging with media. And I think that is really clever and unique. I haven't quite seen that yet.
Interesting.
And so it's at least for my son, who he could read basically one of your books a night.
Oh, wow.
And he'd want to read the next one. Can I read more? Can I read more? And wanting our kids to have that desire to read is, as an author, the goal, right? You want them to dive in and continue to read and get excited about it because it makes us excited. And so it's really a unique direction that you've taken with these books. Now, you're also an illustrator too. So tell us a little bit about the illustrator side.
So I've always been fascinated by illustration, and I started practicing when I was young, and then did some in school in training, and then I got a chance to kind of start practicing through one of the publishing companies I worked with, and I found that was just really enjoyable. It was just a way to kind of put image to page of what I was kind of thinking about. So it might not always be used in middle grade, and so that's where I was kind of wrestling with, well, do I do a graphic novel? Can I do a hybrid graphic novel? Are kids still interested in illustrations at all? So occasionally I do illustrations, and I put them in my series. I don't do them in all of them, but I do enjoy the process. So
it is very, I think as a creative person, there's never just one type of creativity you're doing, because you're always exploring something new or different, or, I know even in my own writing process, I have to draw out some things I see it in my head, but how do I communicate this with words? And so it is a unique medium to grow a story and to connect with all different types of readers. Because I know I have at least one reluctant reader in my house, and so because he has dyslexia, and so I know graphic novels and books with pictures, really are. He's drawn to that because it gives him a break. It gives him just a mind breath before, because all those words could get very overwhelming. And so it's really, really neat to see those, I don't know, those elements thrown into books too still. So
I created a small series. It's 3 books called Fighting Fear. So it's Fighting Fear and Monsters, Fighting Fear and Space Aliens, and Fighting Fear and Giants. But I had a lot of fun doing heavy illustration for those.
Those were I found those, and I need to look at them a little bit more. I thought that was really neat to kind of take the scary things and make them very fun and relatable. So I can't wait to check those out a little bit more. Now, when did your writing journey begin, Rob?
Great question. I think it was when I was pretty young. I still remember in early middle school, I had an assignment that I had to write a story, and I ended up writing a play. And I thought the play, and then and it was only 2 pages long, but we got a chance to perform it. And I just remember really enjoying the play format because you could wear costumes, you could really enter into the character, you had the dialogue, you could play different people. And that just ended up being really fun. And I think that really started to hook me. And actually, one of the stories I tell is that Star Wars, the first Star Wars, which is episode 4, was very big when I was a kid. And everybody was talking about it, and I went and saw it, and I loved it. But it really wasn't until I got to see the making of Star Wars on PBS that suddenly changed my world, because if you would have asked me, is Star Wars real? I would have told you no. But I didn't really know where it came from. And I didn't understand that people sat down and made these things. I didn't know that was a job. And once I found that out, then I was really hooked. So.
Now, what took you from playwriting to learning about screenwriting to writing books? What was kind of that progression?
Well, that's a good... in high school, I had a good friend whose family was rather wealthy, and this was in an era where home camcorders were pretty rare, and his family had one. So what we would do is every Friday night we would get together and often had sleepovers, and everybody wanted to know, like, what should we do? And every week all I wanted to do was, let's make a movie. And every week we would make a new movie, and we would either copy something like James Bond kind of films, and we would do it in our childish, like way. But we did pirate stories, we did spy capers, we just had so much fun. So that's kind of what led me into screenwriting. And I still enjoy that. I actually got to the point where I moved to Los Angeles and was pursuing work out there. But in the end, I think I kind of got turned off by the whole business, because it was kind of one of these where I saw so many of my friends getting chewed up by the industry. They were working like 16-hour days, oftentimes 6 days a week, and weren't even able to see their friends and family. And so I just felt like that wasn't really for me. And so at some point I kind of just said, I think, I want to get out of this. And that's when I felt like the Lord inspired me and said, I want you to write manuscripts and novels. And my first response, having written a whole bunch of screenplays, was, I can't do that. I can't write a novel. That's way too much. I can't do anything like that. So it took probably a good 10 years to turn me around. Lots of practicing, lots of doing, learning reading on storytelling, but also specifically like sentence structure and stuff. And most of that was all to just get past my fear.
Fear played a very large role in my own writing journey, and it's amazing to see how faithful God is when He wants you to go a direction. It's like, we will use every excuse of the book to do it our way, and God's like, okay, give that a try, and I'll see you on the other side. Too fun. Well, what is one of the most impactful books in your life, Rob, other than the Bible?
Yeah, good. Well, I have several. One of which is King Solomon's Mines by H. Rider Haggard. Um, that is an action adventure book that just really swept the rug out from underneath me. I did not expect anything to be that interesting or exciting, especially that was that old. And it's not that it's that old; it's only 150 years old or something, um, if that. But I just was so blown away by that ability to have adventure that I just thought was absolutely thrilling. I mean, that was one book that I just could not put down, and that just really affected me. So that was a beautiful thing. One other book, just to throw out, if I may, is
Okay.
E.B. White's The Trumpet of the Swan. That book really, um, and that was what's fascinating about that book to me is that it's not action adventure. It's just such a beautiful, journey of friendship. It is adventure, but not in the same kind of sense. It's not high adventure. And one quick little story. One day, my wife rented the audiobook of The Trumpet of the Swan from the local library. And she brought it home. She was playing it for our young kids at the time. And I walked in, and my first reaction was, I have no idea who did the narration on this, but they are so unprofessional because they had a strong a New England accent, which usually, like for professional actors and voice coaches, you're supposed to have no accent at all if possible and be very well read. And this guy just sounded in a sense like a grandpa. Somebody's grandfather read this. And yet, over the course of an hour listening to this, I suddenly came to realize this was the best reading I'd ever heard of a book. And that I didn't want some stale, you know, actor reading this. I wanted this person. I wanted an older man, reading this book. I wanted a grandfather to read this to me. And I finally decided we're going to have to buy this. And I need to buy this copy because I won't accept any other copy. Whoever this unprofessional reader is, I want that version. So I got up, grabbed the case, only to find out that it was E.B. White himself reading the book. And I felt terrible that I had bashed it. But then I came to realize that is the perfect person to read this. So
That's amazing. It is kind of funny when I do audiobooks, if they switch between a series, I'm like, hold on, that's not the voice I'm used to hearing. Or there's definitely a book me and some of my friends from church are going through, and the audiobook does not have the author reading it. But the author is it's Paul David Tripp's book. I was like, I want Paul David Tripp to be reading this book to me. It's one of those, like, there's a certain tone that he has that you just wanted to hear in your own ears. So it's definitely come a long way, but it's very unique how we can get kind of picky about who we listen to too.
Yeah. And then we get so attached to it that we can't hear it, any other way
else. Too fun. Well, Rob, what is something that we can expect next from you?
Well, I am currently working on 3 more books in the Sneaky Ink, Recruited by the FBI series. So that's going to be the same cast of characters with more conflict and new conflict. So I'm actually working on the 3rd of those 3 right now. So hopefully they'll come together, and sometime maybe by the fall.
Very neat. And you have a really unique opportunity on your website where you get to kind of sign up for your email list, but you get to be one of your ARC readers too.
Yeah.
How did you come up with that idea?
I had seen other authors do that, and so I just kind of thought, why not throw that out there? And occasionally I just get people to sign up. So if you're interested in becoming an ARC reader, which stands for Advanced Review or Reader Copy, you can feel free to go to my website and sign up.
It has been fun to kind of see some of your work pop up on there and to get a sneak peek at what's going on.
Yeah.
Well, where can people find out more about you and your books, Rob?
Well, I have a website. It's robbaddorf.com. And you can go there and check out pretty much everything that I have.
We'll be sure to have that link in the descriptions for our listeners for sure, certain. Great. Thank you for joining me today, Rob.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Valerie. This has been fun.
And thank you for joining Rob and me on this episode of the Bookworthy podcast. Check the show notes for any books or links that we discussed, and let us know in the comments what is your most used emoji. And be sure to like and subscribe to discover more great books together. Happy reading!